Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later, as now it's time for a brand new unboxing video. And as usual, you'll find a link to TF Source's listing for today's toy in the video description. So when you're done here, why not run on over and see what it's all about? In the meantime, you'll find plenty to enjoy here too, as we're taking in one half of the barbaric battle charger duo with Earthrise Runamuck. Let's get to it. Right then, here is Earthrise Runamuck in his box, and very classic Earthrise packaging. As you can see, it's got the toy itself, a little bit of character artwork just on the side, just there, and then some promo shots on the back. Quietly excited for this one actually, because it had good things, first of all, so that always helps. But you know, we're also sadly lacking representations of these guys in Masterpiece scale, of course, so it'll be nice to check out a sort of modern interpretation of these, well, certainly of Runamuck anyway. I say that because the availability for Runabout is extremely limited. Fortunately, I do have a copy on the way, so looking forward to that one another day. But for today, here is Runamuck in his robot mode, and straight out the box, this is what you get. Robot and gun, job done. Actually, the gun is looking pretty cool. I really like that because it's a very, very on-point sort of representation of his G1 gun, the G1 Toys gun. So that's quite nice, actually. I quite like that. And we'll just go ahead and plug that straight into his hand like so. And here he is, old Runamuck in his robot mode, and looking quite good actually, I have to say. I really like the look of these guys. You know, obviously they're, I think, actually just sharing entirely the same mold, whereas in G1, you know, the car modes had a slight retooling to them, so they were actually slightly different models. But, you know, that aside, I think it's a very decent interpretation of the battle chargers. From what I can see, the sculpt looks really, really good. And, you know, actually in white and the gold, I think it looks pretty fantastic actually. I'm digging it. Some people may not like the gold trim just down here, mind you, as it's not wholly accurate if you're going for well, certainly a Generation 1 interpretation. You know, obviously this is its own thing in origin, but still, if that is what you're after, is a very G1 accurate style, then that is a little bit of a you know, a departure. But that said, you know, maybe you are looking for a kind of toy style thing, in which case there would be a bit of orange up here as well. We'll take a look at the G1 toy versus this guy in just a minute, but yeah, that is a bit of a departure there as well. So it's kind of, if anything, it's a bit of a mashup of different kind of influences, I suppose, and I think it works well in that regard. Really, really like the face sculpt, and actually I think that's quite accurate, you know, to Runamuck and how he was portrayed, his character model. I hadn't really noticed or appreciated that he'd got purple eyes before, but actually up close and just catching the light at the right angle, they look really quite nice. So that's a decent little touch, and yeah, I think, you know, it's a ridiculous mouth plate by any measure, but hey, it works for me. I like it. Of course, he's got what I believe to be a faux chest there, but it's very nicely painted. You know, it's obviously clear plastic with a bit of white paint just on the top, and then the Decepticon tampo applied, but you know, it all looks really good. Some very beefy and maybe a little over-detailed arms that this guy's packing just there. I mean, for my taste, to be honest, there's maybe a little bit too much, you know, in the way of greebles and all of that kind of stuff, but still, it's a bit of a stylized tape, but it works. Kind of the same on the legs just there with all that molded detail. I mean, if anything, it probably looks a little bit more reminiscent of Siege, if anything, more than some of the Earthrise stuff that I've got anyway, but still, you know what, it's fine. Of course, there is one part of this lad's design that never fails to make me laugh. Now, articulation-wise, this guy has fairly decent head tilt up and down. Is very stiff though, can I say, and the head does rotate also. But again, I think it's on a ball joint and it is stiff as anything. Arms go all the way up and, well, all the way over, I should say, at the shoulders, and there's a hinge there as well. And then there is a little bicep swivel just there, and then elbows will go 90 degrees. And then you've got no hand articulation whatsoever, so no wrist swivel and no hand articulation. You do have waist swivel though. Now apparently in a couple of my recent reviews I've said wrist and waist the wrong way round, or I've just said wrist when I meant waist or whatever else, so I've been making extra effort to get it right today. So waist swivel he does have, wrist swivel he does not. There you go. And hip articulation goes a very decent range all the way up. There's literally nothing impeding that whatsoever. And then the knees are a weird one because it's supposed to tab in just there. Already I've had it, you can see when you try and bend the knees, it just pops out fairly freely, so that's kind of annoying. So you may just need to put your thumb just behind the knee to bend it down. That's very stiff, and that will go actually just not even quite 90 degrees if it stays tabbed in properly. You could get more if you're willing to untab it, but it looks a little bit odd, just like that. And then at the foot, you get a bit of ankle tilt as well. and then it's on a rocker also. Which, you know, all told makes this guy fairly articulated overall, actually. I mean, by all means, it's the most articulated Runamuck toy I've certainly ever owned, and it does look pretty decent. I have actually untabbed the knees, as I mentioned just a minute ago, just there, in order to give it just that little bit of extra articulation to pull off the kneel. But actually, it doesn't look too bad. Also worth mentioning that because he's got very big feet overall, he's quite stable, so he can pull off a run like a boss. Now, of course, another quirk of those feet is the on the backside. Just here, you've got the sort of additional set of wheels just kind of hanging out here, which some people may not like or may think is a little bit weird. Of course, it's another callback to the G1 toy, and it does look strange, but I kind of dig it, you know, for what it is. He is a very, very hollow thing, I will say. The arms, this is really obvious, this section here. And, you know, kind of the same on the legs as well. When you come round to the back just here, you can see all of that hollowness going on there. I mean, I guess it is what it is. It's something to be expected now on a lot of kind of Generations toys. This one just struck me as being, you know, particularly obvious in that respect. That said, he does present pretty nicely on the whole, and actually I quite like this robot mode for what it is. I think, you know, it is pretty articulated, it looks the business, it's a nice sculpt, it's a great representation of the character. What more do you want? And here he is, as I promised earlier, versus the G1 toy, so you can see what a difference it makes. No, I won't hear a bad word said about this guy, because I actually love it, right? I really, really love this toy. It's just a very nostalgic thing. It's one of those kind of pull back and go, and it goes and then kind of transforms itself type dealies from the 80s. And, you know, it's an absolute brick in terms of articulation and whatever else, but it's still kind of got its own style and is pretty lovable. And of course, it makes a fantastic foil for the original Runabout. There you go. And I can't wait to see them both done up in Earthrise style. I think it'll be really something to kind of see. In terms of other comparisons, here you can see them with a number of the Earthrise Autobots that I've been reviewing recently. All of these guys have got videos on the channel that you can check out, link in the description. And yeah, actually shapes up pretty nicely. Taller than Sunstreaker, just slightly, so that's a bit unexpected. And I would say on the whole, I think he's coming in currently anyway, we'll see what the car mode's like, but sort of towards maybe the middle of my kind of preferential line, with Trailbreaker and Optimus being some of the best that I've seen from this line so far, and Sunstreaker, although he's good, maybe coming in towards the bottom. And then here he is with Earthrise Fast Track as well, who, well, I just can't recommend enough. There's also a video for this guy on the channel as well, and I think they look really, really great together. That's my 2 Decepticons so far. So yeah, all things considered, I quite like this robot mode, has to be said. Anyway, let's go ahead and check out Transformation and see how he fares in his car mode. Okay, and here's the car mode, and Transformation, really not too bad, as you might expect. Very simple overall, a couple of clever bits and a couple of faux bits, as we've sort of imagined. I mean, those rear wheels on the robot mode feet obviously just fold up inside here and don't do anything in car mode. And then, as expected, you've got a faux roof on the robot mode chest, and then this piece is on his back and then kind of folds out. And then you've got all of these bits for the car mode instead, just purely for that. And it does look good, actually, on the whole. I've definitely got a concern about the paint, though. I mean, don't get me wrong, he presents really nicely, and actually the paint applications themselves are fairly nicely applied. I mean, there is a little bit of give, you know, and kind of just slight, I don't know, I want to say straight lines on some of the clear plastic bits that we'll look at in closer detail in just a minute. But, you know, sections like the tail lights and the gold trim all looks nice enough. Where I am a little bit concerned is that I've definitely had a very, very noticeable amount of white paint flecks coming off during transformation, you know, and on the sort of sheeting that I use for these reviews, it's very obvious, let me tell you. I mean, it shows up like anything. So that's not good. Do you know what I mean? Really, really not good. And I guess maybe it's the coat just here on the, you know, on the clear plastic, where this is all painted on the roof just here. But disappointing, very disappointing in that regard, because it just makes me feel like actually this paint is not going to last. And indeed, just looking at it, you can kind of see that that's maybe going to be the case as well. I mean, to me here, yeah, I am looking under a little bit of a microscope, but just it's not the neatest applied, it has to be said. You know, just in some of the corners, things like that, just looks a tiny bit sloppy to my eye. And I don't know, again, it just has a slightly inconsistent feel, like it's probably hard to see, but just here, you know, it doesn't feel as solid and as kind of packed in as in other areas. It looks fine. I mean, I suppose coming down to the front of the windshield as well, you can see a few areas a little bit more bare than others. I would say it's okay, but I am concerned about it, needless to say. And I do feel like actually in the hands of children, having one in my house as I do, I just know that this is the kind of paint that won't last. You know, actually, funnily enough, I let my, you know, I was having a little play the other day with my son with Sunstreaker, Earthrise Sunstreaker, and already there are, you know, he's pretty good actually, but there are already a couple of little paint scratches and things like that. And these things, let's be fair, are toys. They should be built to last in the hands of children. And so in that regard, I don't know if this measures up. I don't know, maybe I'm sounding a bit harsh, but I just kind of expected the paint to be a bit better. I think it's a weird one for me, because obviously we've got so used to giving Masterpiece a bit of a kicking when it comes to like the slightest paint defect or paint chipping or whatever. And yeah, the thing we have to also acknowledge, of course, is that those toys are vastly more expensive. And so for the price, you know, maybe you do expect better paint. But even this thing, you know, even kind of comparatively cheap as chips as it is, I would have expected better paint than this, to be completely honest. You know what I mean? It just doesn't feel like it's gonna stand the test of time. It looks perfectly nice now. I just kind of have that feeling of it that actually in the wrong hands, or is it the right hands, I guess? It's probably the right hands if it's kids. I don't know if it would last, frankly. It does also have some similar issues to Sunstreaker in terms of it not tabbing entirely flush. I mean, actually, just generally, there's a feeling that this thing doesn't solidify quite as much as I would want it to, maybe. Again, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. Maybe it's me being picky, I don't know. What I do really like, as I say, is the rear tail lights. I think the red chosen there is a nice, very bright, vibrant pop, so that's cool. And I really love this molded clear plastic on this rear section here. I think that looks exceptionally cool. It's kind of got almost like an engine detailing going on in there, something or other, I don't know. But either way, it looks cool. Of course, then you can go ahead and pop his robot mode gun into the top of his roof, and what can I say? Now he's battle charged. Talking to Sunstreaker, here they are together, and of course they measure up pretty well actually in car mode. I think that looks quite nice. And here he is versus the original Runamuck, and I should say on my copy I haven't got the stickers on him yet. Still got those on the sticker sheet waiting to go, lucky me. But yeah, quite a different white on these two overall, and indeed, you know, very varying kind of interpretations on the same character in car mode. Earthrise Runamuck then, what else can I say? Well, look, I like the design, I think it's cool, nice in both modes, transformation's very simple, so it's a cool toy overall. Just be careful with that paint, that's all I'm saying. It's not even bad at the moment, like it actually looks fine, do you know what I mean? I'm probably being a bit nitpicky, but I just feel like without a bit of due care and attention, it's just simply not going to last. That would be my only caution. But you know, on the whole, it's a decent toy, and so, hey ho, it's a toot. So that's Earthrise Runamuck. Now I'll put a link to TF Source's listing for this guy in the video description, and I'll be able to get the full photo review up on their blog soon. Otherwise, that's it from me, so don't forget to drop me a like if you enjoyed today's video, and have a great rest of your day. TTFN.